Okay, welcome to your first Oakmoor home learning PE lesson. First of all, I'll start by saying that we hope that you are all safe and well at home. It's very strange being here and not having you here with us, and we really are missing you. But we've been working hard on planning some lessons that hopefully you'll find fun and engaging, and we'll continue to learn as much as possible with your PE lessons. Now, we've set some work before, obviously, with the Joe Wicks stuff, which is physical activity, and we've set you some theory work. This is the first physical education lesson that we're teaching you from home, so we've had to go about it in a bit of a different way. So you have to bear with us. We're not YouTube stars, and we're trying our best, so we'll see how we go. So just to start with, we have put together a presentation that the kind of thing that you've seen before in school, which you'll have access to already. The very fact that you're watching this video shows that you've clicked on it already. But like we would at school, we've got the principle of going through a lesson with you with some lesson objectives, and then rather than previously us having one lesson to do it and then you upload that work, what we're going to do is change that slightly. So you'll have 2 lessons of your 3 across the fortnight to complete your work. So it gives you some time to actually practice what we're going to be doing today, which is the standing long jump. And then there's some other bits for you to do, some recording, some evidencing, some measuring. Now you can see here in the sports hall we have got some equipment set out, and appreciate fully you might not have that at home. You might have to get creative with this. We've got our athletics tape measure. Perhaps someone at home has got a tape measure that you might be able to use. If not, you're going to have to pace it out. So we've got some distances set out for our long jump here, which are basically from here to the red cone is 75 centimetres. Then we move up to 75 up to 1 metre 50 here. Then we go from 1 metre 50 up to 2 metres 25, and then the yellow cone is 3 metres beyond. If anyone gets beyond the yellow cone, I'll be absolutely amazed. You'll see myself have a go at this later on, and Mr. Oliver as well, who's here just off camera, flicking through some slides for me. He'll come forward and have a go too. So with this, you might not have the cones. You're going to have to mark it out in a different way. It's up to you how you do that, but we're going to need to get 3 jumps done, and you're going to have to record as best you possibly can a distance. So if, for example, you don't have a tape measure, it may be that you can step out a certain distance and therefore use your step. I managed to jump 2.5 steps long, some form of indication of how far you managed to go. If you want to be part of our competition, then obviously we need an accurate measurement so that we can see what the top 3 students in the class might be, for example. So, moving on to our objectives for today then. Like we have in a lesson, exactly the same principle. We'll ask you to kind of assess your own level of ability from red to green to blue. So if we go through those together to begin with, the first bit, first and foremost, for this jump, you need to take off from 2 feet and land on 2 feet. So with that in mind, that links into our first objective. So understand the technique needed to improve performance, that should say. I'll update that one. Performance in the standing long jump or broad jump. This is also known as the standing broad jump. We're going to call it the standing long jump because it links to our athletics lessons. And then demonstrate jumping from 2 feet and landing on 2 feet. To move up to green then, it's about a good level of jumping technique, allowing for improvement in the distance that you're able to achieve in your performance. So it might be that you start off jumping to a certain distance, and then over time, over those 2 lessons that you've got to do this, you show an improvement and you're able to get further with your jumping. And then the blue standard is about excellent jumping technique. So using your arms and legs to produce an explosive jump. Up here are our key words for the lesson, explosive, and we've linked into this idea of a powerful movement. So power equals strength times speed. We've talked to you about these things before, just a nice reminder up there for you. So an explosive jump to cover a good distance. If you're getting anywhere around this kind of distance, 2 meters plus, that's really good. Then that's your blue level really. You're going to have to use your arms and legs properly together if you're going to be able to get near that. Also, when you land, you're going to need to demonstrate good balance and be able to hold that landing, not falling backwards. You wouldn't have done a long jump lesson before because we didn't have a pit at the old school, but this one we have. We're looking forward to getting back to school in the future taking this lesson, what we've learned, and putting that into a long jump lesson out there at the pit. But what you need to know is, and when you watch the world records later on during your lesson time, is when you've landed, the point is taken from the furthest point back. So this heel is further back than this one, therefore it's taken from my right heel. If I fell backwards and put a hand down or my bottom down, the mark would be taken to that furthest point back. So we want to try and get used to holding our balance in this. When we put a sand pit in front of you and we put a run up in for the proper long jump in the summer term, we're then able to kind of fall forwards a little bit so that that back mark is there, and also you're going into something soft rather than a hard floor. Next up, we're talking about making sure we extend our technique further to include taking off from 1 foot and landing on 2 feet. So for your actual 3 recorded jumps, initially you need to do 2 feet to 2 feet, but as an extension task to make it harder and to link into the long jump for later on, we're going to look at a 1-footed takeoff, either way, stepping back, transferring the weight and jumping and landing 2 feet. That's obviously because when we go outside and we do a proper long jump, you'll do a run up, and we don't then do a 2-footed takeoff like we do in the standing long jump. We would take off on 1 foot and drive the knee up to get us to go as far along as we possibly can. So those are our objectives. I think it's worth saying that whilst we've got a slightly different equipment that you might have set up at home, and we have a rather large sports hall to be able to do this in, you need to be very, very mindful of the space that you're using for your PE lesson. Some of you might be lucky enough to have a garden, some of you might not. So please do think carefully about the distance that you're jumping, and think, where am I going to be able to do this safely? Maybe you need to talk to your parents about that to make sure you've got a safe area that you can do it in, because we definitely do not want any injuries. Now, as part of that as well, and we'll come to it later on in a sheet, warm-up is absolutely crucial. We've talked to you about these 3 stages of a warm-up, getting the heart rate up, making sure there's some form of stretching, and then the practice, the activity part. Those of you who've been involved in the Joe Wick stuff will have seen the kind of thing that even in an enclosed space you could do really well as a warm-up. So make sure you're doing that properly. Mr. Oliver and I have done a warm-up as part of what we're doing here today, so that we don't injure ourselves as well, especially me, I'm a bit older, so he's all right, the youngster. Right, okay, so alongside this side of the board, we've got our key words. If we go to the next slide, if I can ask Debbie McGee to flick through for me, thank you. We've got some coaching points for you. I'll talk you through those when I do a demonstration in a moment. But before we do that, as part of our warm-up, we need to continue to learn some of those muscles. So what I'm going to do now, they're not on the board, and no cheating and rewinding and going back to it, please. I'm going to point to those areas of my body, and I want you just to think. You don't have to call out loud. You don't have to put your hand up, because I won't know. See if you can guess what these muscles are. So to start with, 1 at the bottom of the leg. We're then going to go to the front of the thighs. We've got the back of the leg here, got the bottom. We're going to use this top muscle in the forearm and the back muscle, and also the one on the shoulder. Okay, so if we go back through them, as I get to them, did you get this first one? It's the long one that we've struggled with in some lessons. Begins with a G. Gastrocnemius. Did you get that right? If you did, well done. Onto the leg muscles at the front, the thigh muscles made up of 4, beginning with Q. I'm sure you got this one right. Quadriceps, well done. The back of the leg, anyone? H. Well done, Mr. Oliver. Hand up. Hamstrings, that's right. Then we went on to the bottom. Anyone know what the bottom is? It's the gluteals. Up to the arms, you know this, everybody knows these ones, I'm sure. We've got the biceps at the front, made up of 2 muscles, then the triceps at the back of the arm, and then on the top of the shoulder is a new one that we haven't talked about perhaps yet in all lessons, is the deltoid. Now we're going to need that to be able to make sure we're able to bend our arms at the elbow, bend our knees, and those kind of movements that we're talking about today are about flexion and extension. Same at the knee, flexion at the knee and extension at the knee. Crucial movements at the joint that we need to be able to do our standing long jump. Now, these are the coaching points, as I've said, for our jump. I'm going to just attempt to do a jump now and talk you through that, and then I'll invite Mr. Oliver to come and beat my jump, because he's better than me, younger than me, taller than me, everything basically. He's got long hair than me, all of that kind of stuff. So, starting point. We've got our white line. The crucial bit when you're doing this at home is to make sure that you always start from the same place. So don't go and just kind of do the first jump and then shuffle forward a bit and then a bit more on the third one and expect for us not to notice that if it's in a photo or a video. We need to make sure it's always the same one because then you'll know whether you're really improving or not. Now I talked about that flexion and extension at the knee. That's a part of our jump, so we're going to use our arms and our legs by bending and straightening to get to a point where we then can push off and leap forwards. There should be, at a moment in the jump anyway, a hang position where we'll be really reaching up to try and get as far as we possibly can. We need to think about the angle that we jump at. We don't want to just jump along because you'll hit the floor quickly. We don't want to jump too high because we're just going to go up and land near the red cone here. So we want to be going across on an angle up there between 40 degrees and up, I would imagine, for the mathematicians amongst them. So from this position then, we are bending the knees and leaning forward. We're going to use the arms, we're going to propel ourselves forward. When we feel our heels almost touch the floor, we're going to have to bend our knees again back to that starting position to be able to cushion the landing and then not wobble and fall over. I will try my very best. I'm going to be aiming beyond the green, towards the blue if I can. I managed that in the practice, so hopefully we'll be okay. I'll then land it and then I'm going to mark it with this cone so that we can see where it is. And then of course we've got that competition element for Mr. Oliver to come and absolutely smash me. Here we go. Right, so bending the arms and the knees. Oh, it's not bad. Now remembering please that we take from the furthest point back. So obviously at my heels, the angle you might not be able to see, are perfectly in line with each other. So if I line the cone up, I'm using the back side of the cone, this side. Whatever you mark with, you're going to need to do the same. So from that position, if I make my way along, I can tell you that I have jumped 2 meters 10. So that gives me an accurate distance. Whilst Mr. Oliver and I keep our distance now, I'm going to ask him to come round from the camera to give you a second jump to watch.
Hello guys, I hope you're well. I won't take up too much of your time. I'm just going to try and beat the old boy quickly.
Brilliant.
I'm going to jump on the right hand side. You probably can't see my feet, but I am just to the, I am right up to the line. So let's give this a quick go. That looks all right, to be fair.
Yeah, as expected,
That
Mr.
looks
Oliver
all right,
has
to be
beaten me.
fair.
Well done, Mr. Oliver. Very good. What are you up to?
225.
You're marking the front of the cone.
Oh,
so.
sorry, that's 215. So just slightly ahead of you, sir.
As expected. Well done, Mr. Oliver. So he wins our competition for today, but fear not, there are some more lessons coming, and I'm sure at some point we'll be able to, within our department, have a bit of a competition. I know Mr. Gashi and Miss Andrews are also keen to get involved in this, so we'll see where things go. Right, so there's the coaching points. As an extension task, maybe we can get some family members involved in this. Maybe you can become the coach, like we do in our lessons at school, to try and help someone get better at performance. Maybe you've got a younger sibling that you could try and encourage to get better at their jumping. See what we can do here. So if we move on to the next slide, please, sir. You will see here that we've kind of laid out a direction for you as to what you need to do. So task 1 was to watch this video. So well done, you've ticked that off as you're nearly at the end of it. Task 2, that warm-up is really crucial, so please do make sure that you take part in that properly. We don't want any injuries, as said at the start. Task 3 is to practice this long jump. We've said at the start that we've obviously got 2 lessons worth of time to do this. Some of that time is about watching it, some of the time is going to be practicing it, and the majority should be about the practical side of things. So really refine those skills of your standing long jump. Have lots of goes. Doesn't need to be immediately all done on the same day. Keep practicing, maybe get someone else involved at home if you can. Make it as fun as you possibly can. When I was younger, we used to have garden Olympics that we do all sorts of different things, and some of those will be brought into some of the lessons you're going to be doing. Like this one, we did this when we were younger. And then on to the next bit, it's about recording yourself. So if we go on to the next slide, this is the sheet which has been attached separately for you, just so that you've got it straight there. You can edit it and you can put bits and pieces in it, or you can handwrite it if you want to. It's up to you before you then submit it back to us. So obviously over that side you've got your 2-footed jump. That's the minimum expectation for everyone. We will all stand there, take off 2 feet, land on 2 feet and record a distance. You need to make sure you're doing 3 of those, and then the extension task is to see if we can then progress on to, like I said, a 1-footed jump. And now at that point we're going to be using the knee, driving up. It's a different jumping technique, okay, but this is linked in more closely to the long jump that we're going to do when we come back to school. So from this position, if I get the knee going up because of the transference of weight, I'm able to get a little bit further, okay, and that's something you can practice. There's an extension. Can you get further, like I did there for your 1, 2, 3 jumps? You need to then do a comparison between the two. I managed it in one go, but what was yours like? Did it feel better for you? Was the left foot better than the right foot? They're all things you can consider as part of the comparison. You might need a bit more room than that. If you do, then perhaps come over here and write a little bit more about it. It's up to you. Get creative. Okay, and then the last one is about how many of your jumps would it take to break a world record. So if we go to the last slide, we've got some information on here. I'll come back to this top bit. We've got a slow motion shot here. It's really small on here, but I promise you it's a bit bigger when it's on your presentation at home. This is Mr. Oliver that we recorded yesterday in a slow motion version of the jump, so it's something else for you to watch. And if you click the links, there are the 2 records there, the world records. So from 1988, Galena Kristyakova, I think that's right, at 7 meters 52. That's phenomenal. You think about it. Obviously, she's got a run up to do, but it's a huge distance. And then Mike Powell, back in 1991 in Tokyo, the American chap here, who did 8 meters 95, which is absolutely massive. Still not been beaten. So if you click on the blue, that will take you through to some clips. Some of these clips that we found, I think this one might be in a foreign language. It doesn't matter because it's about what's going on in the picture rather than the commentary. But please have a look at those. And then with those numbers, how many of your jumps would it take for you to get to that point of beating a world record? Hopefully, there's lots in that lesson for you, which will take 2 lessons for you to have a go at, to really enjoy. Like I said, try to challenge maybe someone at home, get involved with as much of that as you can. Your 3rd lesson of your 3 will be setting some theory-based work, but the 2 we're going to try as much as we can to get to a point where we're getting back to as much PE as possible, physical education, rather than just physical activity, which is also a crucial part. So keep going with the Joe Wicks, keep healthy, keep safe, make sure please you're being helpful at home, look after your parents, look after your siblings if you have any, okay, take care of each other, and we will look forward to seeing